Meeting of the City of Port Phillip on the 17th of November 2021. The City of Port Phillip respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners of the lands we are meeting on today. We pay our respects to their elders, both past and present. We acknowledge and uphold their continuing relationship to the land on which we meet today. Councillors, we're in a hybrid meeting tonight, and welcome back, particularly to Teresa, to the council meeting. It's good to have people back in Town Hall, but we're a hybrid meeting tonight. We've got people in the Town Hall and also people participating through our WebEx platform. This meeting is obviously being streamed through the council website and through our Facebook page, and the recordings of this meeting will be published within 24 to 48 hours on the council's website also. Please keep in mind that the content is copyrighted and cannot be altered, reproduced or republished without permission in writing from the council. I remind attendees that, and any member of the public addressing council tonight, that you must extend due courtesy and respect to council and the processes in which we operate here today. Councillors, there's no apologies this evening because we're all here, which is item number 1. I now move to item number 2, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. Are there any questions on the council meeting minutes from the 3rd of November which have been circulated? No questions. I'd ask for a councillor to move. Thank you, Councillor Martin. And a seconder from, thank you, Councillor Bond. I'll now put that motion. All those in favour? All those against? Carried unanimously. Councillors, your opportunity to declare conflict of interest under item number 3. Councillor Martin, go ahead.
Mayor, I'm involved with a football club that plays at Murphy Reserve. There's a motion under confidential motion that's looking at something to do with the clubs that play there. I'm not involved in the single governance entity, but I want to declare that I've got an interest, but I don't believe I've got a conflict of interest.
Thanks for clearing that out. Any further declarations? Now move to item 4, which is public question time. We'll now hear from all public questions and public comments on report items. All requests to speak were required to be submitted by 4 p.m. this afternoon, and the submitters are given the option to attend here in person, appear during through our WebEx platform, or statements can be read by the officers here today. There's 3 submissions or questions that have been put this evening, all from the same person, from Adrian Jackson. Kirsty, if I could ask you to read those questions out, and we'll get some responses from officers, please.
Certainly. Through you, Mayor. The first question reads, the recent storm saw a number of large trees in Port Phillip streets crushed to the ground, narrowly missing houses, cars and pedestrians in Middle Park and environs. Is Council aware these dangerous native trees are not suitable for nature strips or in an urban area? Australian native trees are more likely to be blown over in strong winds. Not only are they dangerous, it costs ratepayers money to clean up the mess. What is Council's solution to this issue?
Thank you for that, and I'll ask Mr Anthony Trail to answer that on behalf of officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We currently have an even split of natives and exotic species within the council area. In big storm events like the one recently experienced across Melbourne, all trees can fail or shed limbs. Native trees are no more likely to fail and shed limbs than exotic species. The City of Port Phillip carries out yearly tree inspections of all trees as part of the general tree maintenance program, when benchmarked is more frequently than biannual of our local neighbours. Council in 2022 will be consulting on our Greening Port Phillip strategy, and I encourage Mr Jackson and our community to contribute to that process.
Thank you, Mr Trail. And the second question, please.
Through you, Mayor. The second question reads, are indoor council staff and contractors who meet face-to-face with customers required to be double vaccinated? How are medical exemptions, both staff and customers, managed?
Mr Smith, if you could answer that question for us, please.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor, under the Chief Health Officer directions for local government, all employees and contractors working outside their home or usual place of residence must be fully vaccinated. This includes working at any COP site or working in the community. Where an employee has a valid medical exemption, alternative arrangements will be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. I note that we expect very few employees to have a medical exemption, and this may include provision of alternative duties, for example, work that can be undertaken from home. Under the recently approved COVID-19 service delivery vaccination policy, customers are considered to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 for the purpose of attending a council service or activity if the customer has a valid medical exemption issued by an authorised medical practitioner, and they will be able to access services in the same way as fully vaccinated customers.
Thanks, Mr CEO. Thank you, Mr CEO. And Mr Jackson's final question, please.
Through you, Mayor, the third question reads, why has the St Kilda Centric Council spent $75,000 on street mural in Fitzroy Street that the local business association proposed and contributed to financially? Can we expect more of this art in other parts of Port Phillip at ratepayers' expense? Is there an ongoing maintenance cost for the mural as a result of weather damage or vandalism? Is Council aware of the damage done to the mosaic round seat at the base of St Kilda Pier?
Thank you, and I call upon Kylie Bennett to provide an answer to Mr Jackson's question.
Through you, Mayor, Council has not spent or committed $75,000 of ratepayers' money on a street mural in Fitzroy Street. Council has provided $75,000 for the Renew Fitzroy Street project each year for the past 2 years, but that project was to activate vacant properties on Fitzroy Street, and that's been occurring through a wide variety of startups and emerging businesses establishing their business on Fitzroy Street. With respect to murals in the area, the St Kilda Junction mural project, scheduled for this weekend, aims to mitigate against ongoing graffiti in the area. This project will bring together 52 artists from the Melbourne area, inviting them to complete new works in situ. The largest walls will be set aside for dedicated works under the theme Welcome to St Kilda, defining the site as a positive and creative entry to St Kilda. Whilst council officers are supporting the delivery of this project, it has been funded via the state government. Another public art initiative in the area is the Mercer Mural, initiated by the Fitzroy Street Business Association. This was funded under a council grant, however the amount involved was $15,000 rather than $75,000.
Thank you very much. That concludes item number 4 on the agenda. We'll now move to item number 5, councillors, which is your opportunity to ask questions of officers. Councillor Crawford, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I just was wondering that sorry. I was just wondering if you could give us an update in regards to there has been some ongoing discussions in regarding to the CEO employment. I was wondering if you could update us or could seek an update on where that has got to.
And thank you, Councillor Crawford, for asking that question. It's important that this information is disclosed to our public. And on behalf of councillors, I would like to disclose that through a number of confidential meetings that have been on the agenda in the past few meetings of council, we're pleased to announce that our current CEO, Mr Peter Smith, has had or accepted a contract a new contract, but effectively extending his contract for 2 years from May 2021, and we appreciate May 2022, pardon me, for a period of 2 years commencing at that point. The contract has been signed and that information is now being released from confidential to the public. So thank you, Mr Smith, and we wish you all the very best in your duties as CEO. It deserves a round of applause, actually. Councillors, any further questions on the Section 5? There being none, I'll move now to, and thank you, Councillor Crawford, for bringing that up. We'll now move to the ceiling schedule, which is item number 6. There's no items here this evening. There are also no items under item number 7, which is petition and joint letters. We'll now move to items 8, through 14, which is the presentation of reports. The first item is report 8.1, which is the presentation of the CEO report, issue number 80. And thank you to particularly Kylie Bennett and the ELT team for putting this together. Any questions, councillors, on this report? There being none, Councillor Martin, would you move the report, please? And a seconder. Councillor Bond, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, can I congratulate my personal congratulations to our CEO and his reappointment, and I'm sure we all look forward to working with you for another 2 and a bit years. I find the CEO report one of the most important documents that we have at Council, and I've spoken on this a number of times, but very briefly, given that we have a short agenda tonight, there are some marvellous highlights in the CEO report. For example, it details what Council's been doing with its COVID response and highlights the work of the Port Phillip Community Group. So I'd love to acknowledge the work of the Port Phillip Community Group in dealing with those many, many people who've been affected in the time of COVID. As someone who's very passionate about social housing in Port Phillip, there's an update on what's happening with the Common Ground in Wellington Street and the new Housing First project in Marlborough Street. There's mention of the Seniors Festival, which I was happily involved with, and there's even a photo showing the screen of the cyber disco, and I'm there as one of the participants, so I thank all of those people involved in organising that. And there's some wonderful news under sustainability. So, for example, I know we've recently purchased 16 new hybrid vehicles as an example of Council's commitment to sustainability. I think this is a very informative report, and I look forward to it being adopted.
Thanks, Councillor Martin. Councillor Bond? No, thanks. Would anyone else like to speak to item 8.1? Thank you, Councillor Crawford.
If I just may briefly, one of the interesting things that I wasn't really aware of that we were doing, which is very exciting, is the use of the green factor tool with the City of Melbourne to try and look at our buildings and how we reduce heat in the building and surrounding areas and provide habitat for biodiversity along in with our planning. And I think that's a really exciting move for a built-up city like ours. So I'm very excited to see what that delivers.
Thanks, Councillor Crawford. Councillor Martin, would you like to close? No, let's put that to the vote. All those in favour of that motion? That's carried unanimously, thank you. Let's move now to item 9.1, which is the Community Grants Program 21-22, recommendations for funding. Councillors, any questions to the officers on this item? Okay, there's a recommendation here from officers, councillors. We don't need to insert anything to the motion, so I'll ask for someone to move. Councillor Crawford to move and Councillor Bond to second. Councillor Crawford, please speak to the item.
Just briefly, this is a really important grant program that we have, and thank you to Councillor Bond and Councillor Contamination for the hard work that goes into their part and our independent members from the community. I went to a different grants program with the South Melbourne Community Chest Op Shop the other day where they were giving away grants, and what struck me is although we are a very lucky and generally well-to-do city, there is a lot of inequality and need in our community, and I think this program here really delivers these grants to some of the most vulnerable, disadvantaged in our community, but also just generally builds community across the city. So I just commend these grants that go out and do so much good for matched with volunteer hours and deliver so much for our city.
Any further speakers to the item? Councillor Bond?
Yeah, just on behalf of Councillor Contamination and I, who are the two councillors on the community grants, like to thank the officers and the community members who put in numerous hours worth of reading and assessments and discussion on these grants to produce the outcome we're looking at here tonight. Not everyone was successful. Some have missed out for various reasons, and that feedback's been provided to different organisations, but a number of organisations have been successful here, and we wish them well in their projects for which they have attracted funding from the City of Port Phillip.
Councillor Contamination, go ahead.
Thank you. It was an honour to be on this panel. I learned a lot about our community through it, and I only got to see half of them, but now I get to see a little bit more of the other side. It's some great programs and exciting for once everyone gets to hear about what they are. And I really like to thank the panel. It was an enjoyable process. I didn't know what to expect, and it was actually really interesting. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Contamination. Councillor Crawford, would you like to close? No? Okay. And also thank you to Tony Keenan and your team, particularly Katrina Turgeon and Emma Blackford, for putting the report together, and thanks for being here this evening. Now put that motion to you, councillors. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Now move to item 11.1, which is the endorsement of the flood management strategy for Port Phillip and Westernport 21 to 23. Sorry, pardon me. I've scrubbed the wrong one out. Exactly, it's an important one too. Don't want to skip that one accidentally. Item 10.1, which is the adoption of the review of site contamination management policy for 2020 to 2024. Councillors, there's a report in front of you. Any questions about that report? Councillors, there's an officer's recommendation for item 10.1. Can I get someone to move that for me? Councillor Clark, thank you, and Councillor Bond to second. Councillor Clark, would you like to speak to the motion? Councillor Bond, would you like to speak to the motion? Councillor Baxter, please. Deputy Mayor Baxter, please speak to the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, happy to... You know what? I got confused because you were talking about the flood thing.
No, it's tricky.
And now I was starting to talk about that. So actually, I have nothing to say on this item, but you wait and see. I will have something to say about the flooding one.
Yeah, that's okay. My apologies. Any councillors wish to close? No? Okay, let's put the motion to a vote. Item 10.1, just to confirm all those in favour. It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we move to item 11.1, which is the endorsement of the flood management strategy, Port Phillip and Westernport Bay, 2021 to 2031. Questions from you, councillors? Councillor Sirikoff, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. This is quite a broad and expansive strategy report. I would like to refer to point 4.3 of the report with regard to a 5-year action plan to address flood mitigation between Melbourne Water and partners, where they address flood mitigation needs, notably for the Elster Creek catchment. I have received correspondence from a number of concerned residents about reoccurring flooding in their neighbourhoods of West St Kilda and Middle Park. The West St Kilda Residents Association has on a number of occasions been in contact with the council on the matter of flooding over the past 2 decades in their neighbouring streets, and they have also...
Sorry to interrupt, Councillor Sirikoff. This is a question time we're in.
Yeah.
You asking a question? Okay, no trouble.
Yeah, I'm getting a question in.
If you could, that'd be great.
Okay, and they've tabled correspondence with the council. I've got 2 questions. Can council advise how St Kilda West and neighbouring areas are included in this 10-year flood management plan, notably for existing houses in heritage area in the heritage overlay areas, which would lie in low-lying sites? And question 2, what is council doing now and in this plan to improve stormwater drainage systems during heavy rainfall events, notably noting the West St Kilda Residents Association continue raising concerns about flooding?
Mr. Carroll, can you point me in the right direction here?
Through you, Mayor. I'll have to take the question on notice, unfortunately.
Did you have a second question, or were all the questions lined up?
That was 2 questions.
Yeah, I was going to suggest, is Renee Walton able to help?
Through you, Mayor, I'm able to assist with the first part of Councillor Sirikoff's.
If you could go ahead, that would be great. And if the sound guys could turn it up just a little bit. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. So the 5-year action plan will be further stepped out with the partners throughout, of which City of Port Phillip is one. The action plan doesn't specifically relate to or identify any catchments anywhere within the Greater Melbourne region. However, as the actions actually get rolled out, we will have the opportunity to influence and try and advocate for particular projects within the Port Phillip Council area. Elster Creek is certainly high on the agenda and has been for a number of years. That's not to say that other parts of the city that are that we know do suffer from, I guess, flooding are not also, we can certainly advocate for action in that area as well. In terms of question 2, I'd like to refer, through you, Mayor, to Zoe Omahani, who might be able to answer the rest of that question.
That'd be great. If you are online, Zoe, can you hear us and speak?
Yes, through you, Mayor.
Perfect. We can hear you loud and clear. Go ahead.
Great. Since 2018, Council has invested over $3.5 million on a program of CCTV mapping, inspection and cleaning of the pipe network to make sure it's working at its capacity. Known flooding hotspots within the city have been prioritised within this program, and that includes many parts of St Kilda West, which is made up of 4 separate sub-catchments. The examples of works that have taken place recently include pipe replacements and diverting stormwater from pipes that are currently at capacity to ones with some spare capacity, so moving it around so that the network can operate more efficiently. Installation of more drainage pits so the water can actually enter the stormwater network, and it will make it easier for our maintenance staff to clean. Road resurfacing to look at local ponding, what it's called, where water gathers by the curb, and also works to upgrade our gross pollutant traps to stop litter getting into the drainage system, so that improves water quality and helps the water flow more efficiently. We've also recently undertaken work to upgrade our flood model, which will make our flood model one of the most accurate in Melbourne, and will also enable us to have more information about our current drainage network and to look at how we prioritise drainage upgrades and to make sure that we incorporate flood mitigation as part of our road and public space upgrades.
Thank you for the answers. I appreciate it. Councillor Sirikoff, you a follow-up at all? Are you satisfied with those answers?
Very happy with that. Thank you.
Great. No further questions, councillors? Terrific. We have an officer's recommendation. Would anyone like to move this or something else? Councillor Martin, thank you. And a seconder. Councillor Bond, thank you. Councillor Martin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I've read the report, and it's a great big picture overview of the strategy that we need to undertake in the Greater Melbourne area over the next 5 to 10 years. As someone who spent years living in Beach Avenue next to the Elwood Canal and spent nearly 20 years living in Mitford Street in a flood zone, I'm well aware of the need to implement many of the strategies here, and I'm sure that this document will lead to vast improvements in our flood mitigation. I'd also note what we've just heard from our council officer, that there are other issues that we can act as a council locally, for example, the drain cleaning that's been undertaken. And if I can put on my Gateway Ward hat, but for those people who live in Port Melbourne and particularly Garden City, they know the effect of autumn leaves on drains and the flooding that occurs. This is not something that this plan can pick up on, but I'm sure our council officers will be well aware of this, and we look forward to strategies to make sure that whenever there's heavy rain forecast, that the drains for the good people in Garden City and Port Phillip, the street drains are cleaned, so we don't have streets being flooded. So let's endorse this report.
Thanks, Councillor Martin. Councillor Bond? No. Who else would like to speak to this report? Councillor Deputy Mayor Baxter.
So I basically reserved my right before by buggering it up.
Correct. Go ahead.
Yeah. Look. So I've had some feedback from people in the community that have been affected by flooding and that have had a long history with working with council and other agencies in terms of flooding. And the feedback that I'm getting is that this document is a good high-level document, but it lacks the level of detail that we need to see in terms of being able to actually protect people's homes from flooding. I think that without quite specific goals in terms of how many dwellings you're going to protect from flooding issues, it's going to be difficult for this strategy to have much of a real-life effect for people in Elwood. Having said that, I will vote for this. I think this is a good base for us to work from. And what I would really like to see is council working really closely with all the different water agencies to make sure that we can actually set together really good targets and goals about how we're going to actually protect places like, I'm going to be talking about Elwood, but there are other places within the city of Port Phillip that are affected greatly by flooding. I think we're sort of here and we need to be here, and I think we need to do that quickly. And this, if we take this as a first step, I'd be happy with that, and we can continue on. But this shouldn't be considered a final step by any means.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Crawford, go ahead.
It's interesting to see how many photos of Elwood is in this report. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. Look, I agree with Councillor Baxter. It is a good first step. There's some really great principles and things in there, but I guess there is, I think, I would like to see a sense of urgency around rolling out some of these actions. Obviously, Elster Creek itself and a diversion, the Head Street diversion, but not just that. It's been talked about for a number of years with the plan that we've done with the Elster Creek joint council program that we really need to start addressing our planning changes upstream to capture water where it falls, not when it comes down the creek. And I think that's something that can be kind of addressed immediately. And I know how long planning amendments take to roll out, but that's actually something that could be it's a low-hanging fruit, and I would urge working with Melbourne Water to see if we can get that delivered for all parts of our municipality, and not just our municipality. I think there are many places in the state that would benefit. And the other thing is, I guess, in the basis of this plan, there are some really great ideas and goals, but I know how limited funding is for Melbourne Water, so this would be my call out to other levels of government to increase the funding, given that flooding has just as much impact as bushfires, and needing the kind of level of for maintenance and flood mitigation efforts and interventions where needed. So I'm happy to endorse this, but I would look for more funding and more action as quickly as we can.
Thanks, Councillor Crawford. Any further speakers to the item? Councillor Martin, would you like to close?
As I indicated earlier, I think this is a great first step, and it's a great big picture document, but most of the other councils who've spoken have highlighted that there's far more detail that we can do at a local level, and perhaps in cooperation with some of our neighbouring councils. So Councillor Crawford suggested what we could do upstream in the Elster Creek catchment. Councillor Sirikoff has asked what we can do in areas of Western Kilda and Middle Park, and I've highlighted some of the areas that we have in Port Melbourne and Garden City in terms of local flooding areas. So yeah, fantastic document as a start, but our own council's got a lot to do with this, and something that we can all be involved in as we develop our climate emergency action plan next year. Hopefully we can pick up on a number of these issues as we develop that plan.
Thanks, Councillor Martin. Now put that motion that Councillor Martin's moved to the vote, please. All those in favour? That's passed, carried unanimously, rather. Councillors, we now move to item 12.1, which is the timeline for implementation for the Library Action Plan. Questions from you, if possible, councillors? There being none, I'll now ask for a mover and a seconder. Thanks, Councillor Crawford, and thank you, Deputy Mayor Baxter. Councillor Crawford, would you like to speak to the item?
Oh, this is exciting to get to this point, and we see some actions and mapped out over the next 4 years. I think there's some really great, simple, straight ones. I look forward to the increased programming and where there can be upgrade and reinvention of not spaces but like areas within it, you know, especially for the kids' programming. Yeah, so I'm very excited to have got to this point. I look forward to the specifics as they come to bear.
Thanks, Councillor Crawford. Deputy Mayor Baxter.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I've taken my kids 3 times to the St Kilda Library since they since it opened, and just the looks on their faces when they go in there, they're so happy to be back there, and I've been really excited about what we can achieve with the Library Action Plan for a little while now, and I'm glad to see that it's reaching this stage where we can plan out all of the implementation. Libraries are really special places, and I think a lot of people really realised that during the lockdown, particularly those of us with kids. I'm looking at Councillor Consola. But yeah, just really happy to get this rolling.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Baxter. Anyone else councillors, would you like to speak to the items? No. Councillor Crawford, would you like to close? All right, let's put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Let's move now to item 13.1, which is Council Planning Committee meeting timetable for 2020. Any councillors, questions for councillors? I'm happy to move that item. Looking for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Consolo. I don't wish to speak to the item. Councillor Consolo, do you wish to speak? Go ahead.
Yeah. I'd like to thank the officers and Councillor Crawford for working around scheduling some breaks for a school holiday program or school holiday times. We had thought about maybe a longer time in July, which was fine as well, but now it's spread out a bit, and I think we'll all appreciate some breaks because it's a pretty full-on job, and it's good for families to be able to take a break together too. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Consolo. Any further comments? I won't close. I'll now put that to the vote. Item 13.1. All those in favour? That's passed, carried unanimously. Move now to item 13.2, which is the status of council decisions and questions taken on notice recorded by council between July 1st, 2021 and September 30th, 2021. Questions from you, councillors? Ask for a mover, please. For office recommend Deputy Mayor Baxter, and seconder is Councillor Martin. Councillor Baxter, Deputy Mayor Baxter.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, I say this every time, but this is such an important item on our council agenda. Council is such a huge beast with so many different departments and different moving bits, and we make so many decisions in all sorts of different ways. And for the average punter to try and get an idea of what the implementation of our decisions even looks like, it can be absolutely confusing. So these items that come up every so often in our council meetings are really important and transparent way to demonstrate to the community exactly what we're doing when we say we're going to do something.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And Councillor Martin, would you like to speak to the item? Anybody else likes to speak? I presume Councillor Baxter doesn't wish to close, so I'll put that motion to the vote. All those in favour of item 13.2, it's carried unanimously. Item 13.3 is Councillors' Expenses Monthly Reporting, September 2021. Any questions? I'm happy to move. Looking for a seconder. Councillor Crawford, thank you. I don't wish to speak. Councillor Crawford. Any other councillors wish to speak to the item? No, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Moving now to item 14, which is notice of motions. We have one notice of motion this evening, which has been raised by Councillor Crawford in relation to flagpoles at Alfred Square, St Kilda. Councillor Crawford, the motion is on the agenda, so it's up to you if you wish to read it or not. Councillors have the opportunity to see it, and so has the public. So, Councillor, I'll give the opportunity for people to ask questions about the motion, either Councillor Crawford or the officers. No, thank you. Councillor Crawford, I asked you to move your motion, and I'll just, before I do that, ask for a seconder to the motion. Councillor Consolo, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Crawford.
Look, it's been brought to our attention many years ago that at one of our main war memorials in the city in Alfred Square, it only had the one flag, and we weren't flying the Aboriginal flag or the Torres Strait Islander flag. So it has been floating around as an idea that finally looks like it can happen, assuming everyone will support this motion. So the idea is that at Alfred Square, we would install these flagpoles in time, hopefully for Anzac Day, albeit we do need to get heritage approval. But I think it would be a great nod to our Indigenous men and women who went to war as well, that they would be included as part of, as we do in many of our town halls, fly the flag of all three flags. So I'm asking councillors to consider, as a sign of respect to our First Nations people, to include these two extra flagpoles. It will be covered under business as usual costs, and hopefully in time for Anzac Day in 2022.
Thank you, Councillor Crawford. Councillor Consolo. Any other councillors wish to speak to the item? Councillor Crawford, you don't want to close? No? All right, let's put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's just because there's a number issue in my papers, so I'm just checking, so just give me a minute. So it's item 15, which is report by council delegates. It's number 16 here. Just want to make sure I'm not missing something. Councillors, any reports from you under item 15? Thanks, Councillor Martin. Go ahead.
Briefly, Mayor, I'm Council's nominee on the Bubup Woomajeka Family and Childcare Centre Board, and I'd just like to councillors and the public to be aware that our board has dealt with some, and our staff have dealt really, really well with some very complex issues over COVID. And I'm also aware that the other family and childcare centres that the council is responsible have also done extremely well. So I'd like to commend all of those staff involved in childcare in the City of Port Phillip, and particularly those at the Bubup Woomajeka Family and Childcare Centre for the amazing job they've done in keeping their centres open, making sure things have run very smoothly during these very difficult COVID times.
Thank you for your service there, Councillor Martin. No further reports by council delegates. Thank you. There's no. Are there any items of urgent business on item 17? There being none, let's move now to item 19, which is confidential matters. We have one confidential report listed on the agenda this evening, and that is item 17.1, Northport Oval. I'll now move a motion for the meeting be closed to the members of the public as we consider two items, and I'd ask somebody to second that if possible. Thank you, Councillor Consolo. No need to speak. I'll just put the motion to you, councillors. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. I'll now wait for the doors to be closed, and thank you, Teresa, for coming. It's so good to have you back. The 10th councillor, as Councillor Bond calls you.